Everyone needs a framework. Everyone needs a system. The more likely you are to follow a system, the more likely you are to be successful. My guest today is passionate about his system, passionate about the process, and he's going to give you some insights that can definitely help you as you go forward and improve yourself as a sales professional. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, I have a guest. His name is Luke Lunkenheimer. Luke has amazing experience, not only from his experience as a seller, but also from the School of the Hard Knocks life, and also from his experience working with sellers and teams. In this episode, Luke is going to break down his 3C framework. And this is going to help you not only to be able to be more successful with your individual sales effort, but it can also help you with different aspects of your life. I encourage you to listen to it, see how you can apply it, and how it can help you improve your sales game. Let's go ahead and dive in. Luke, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, brother, how are you?
Man, I'm excited to have you. You got me at hello on the last one, telling me a little bit more about your experiences and how this 3C framework got me pumped up. I bragged about you a little bit in the teaser, but why don't you take maybe just like a quick hot second and tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, man. Listen, I mean, that's a long tail. Takes a little more than a hot second, but I'll optimize for brevity. So basically just a guy that grew up normal, just like anybody else, very small town, small beginnings. Had a scholarship to play ball, lost the scholarship due to injury, tried to get a surgery so I could play. The surgery went bad, got addicted to pain pills, spent 10 years as a drug addict, robbed a bank, went to prison, got out and said, okay, let's start life at the age of 30. So, from 20 to 30 or 18 to 29, really, it was sales. It was always sales. It was car sales. It was what I was native to. It was a family business. I always found myself being able to talk my way into some sort of deal. So I always had a job. I was always employed, but I was never able to really advance or get better. I was just able to BS my way through a paycheck. And when I got out of prison, I swore I would never go back into sales. I thought it was a nefarious career. We BS people for a living to get paid. But then as time went on, I realized that it wasn't the nefarious actor was not the career of sales. It was the salesperson with the wrong mindset. And when I re-entered the sales ecosystem with the right set of values and mindset and goals, I was substantially more productive and effective than I was in prior years, and to a more desirable end, an honorable end that made me a hell of a lot of money. So I love sales, brother. I live it, breathe it. It's what I do.
My man, I absolutely love that. And that's quite an experience. And this is why, when I tell you guys listening to the episode, like when Luke looked at his information, I figured he would be a fireball to bring on a show. Has the experience, has the knowledge, but also has walked the walk and can give you some actual stuff. So I want to go into this because you have a framework, Luke, that's important that you've developed, the 3C framework for sales.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that. What exactly is that? I'm sitting here listening for the first time. What's the 3C framework?
Right. So what's important is the listeners understand that framework isn't necessarily the sales framework, meaning 3C doesn't get me from start to finish in a sales conversation. But what 3C does is it helps you understand rather what separates a excellent or professional or elite level salesperson from somebody who sells to make a paycheck. Okay. And there are three core things that we optimize for in the paid to persuade training discipline. There's a lot of sales trainers out there. There's a lot of gurus out there. There's a lot of self-professed educators out there. And there's a staunch difference and a very hard line between somebody who's optimizing for views and entertainment and somebody who's actually trying to create a more effective salesperson on the other end. And if you're trying to maximize your abilities in sales, 3C is something that you must pay homage to and you must respect. And it is the following. Number one, content. Salespeople operate in their careers generally what we call winging it. Okay.
Oh my
They've got
goodness.
their sales training. What's that?
I said, oh my goodness.
It's a fact though. And it's crazy because it's like one of the only careers in the world where people think this is okay. It's like the accepted norm. Be like going to train for a firefighter and be like, okay, I know getting it wet will put it out. And I know maybe climbing up the building and starting at the top might be a good idea. Let's just wing it. Like you don't do that anywhere else in a professional environment. Sales should be the same way. So content is a framework, meaning from the word hello in a sales conversation, you need to know exactly what step one is. What am I trying to accomplish right now conversationally? Am I trying to force something down their throat? Or am I trying to get something from them? Am I trying to get them to see something a certain way, test drive or test use a product? Like, what is step numero uno for me in order to have the most effective sales conversation I can have? So if a salesperson's getting up going to work every day, not adhering to some sort of framework or training method, then they're operating at a gross disadvantage. So that's content, C
Okay.
number one.
And we'll come back into each of these too.
Sure. The second is confidence. And that's just an understanding that if I'm trying to be a better salesperson, the one thing that I need to continue to cultivate and improve is my confidence level. You've heard a lot of people talk about certainty in sales. Sales is the act of transferring my certainty to the customer, to the client, to the prospect. And once the client has the same level of certainty about the outcome that I do, then they will engage. Now, there's a lot of truth to that, but what the individual, the salesperson, needs to understand is the only way that they're going to be able to convey certainty is if they can do so with ruthless confidence. Furthermore, the frequency of authentic communication, which is actually a physical, measurable frequency, the frequency of authenticity, it resonates 4 times higher than any sort of other conversational tone or emotion, is going to be received 4 times deeper or at a 4 times greater rate than any other conversation. The way you convey yourself authentically is to have confidence. I mean, the confidence to know that if there is a potentially closable deal, if there's intent and there's income, you're going to get that deal. And the salespeople listening are probably going, well, dude, there's no way you're going to know you can get a deal. Brothers and sisters, I assure you there is. And if you don't think there is, you're missing a major, major amount of information and you're missing a lot of money. So that's confidence. The third, brother, is cadence, rhythm. Okay. You got to be getting up, role playing, practicing, sticking to your framework, educating. If you do not have a weekly framework that you're adhering to that requires you to re-engage with whoever your mentor or educator is on a consistent basis in perpetuity for infinity, then you will not reach your highest level of efficacy in sales. There are statistics up the wazoo, brother. I could rattle off. We can go to Chat GPT and give us a list of 100 statistics, quotes, sayings, things that will back up the fact that if you're not practicing, role playing, and furthering your education on a continual basis, but most importantly, iterating with the mentor or the chief or the educator, the person who's given you your respective framework, if you're not doing that every week, you're missing out on a significant amount of income. So content, confidence, cadence, brother, that's the 3 C's. And if it doesn't have to be my framework, it doesn't have to, obviously I'm naturally, predisposed to being biased to mine. But if you're not doing any of these things with anybody, if you're just winging it and flying blind in sales, the amount of money that you're missing is probably unfathomable to most people.
Let's go back to your experience. You told us a story in that quick hot minute there. You're talking about your experience selling cars.
Mhm.
It sounded like you winged it a lot. Do you think did you hit your highest potential income wise in your early years?
Absolutely not, bro.
Talk, go deeper. Go
the
deeper than
the
that.
amount of money I left on the table, okay,
Mhm.
just with simple things, simple things. Like, for instance, not knowing about neuroplasticity
Mhm.
and reflexive action, meaning if I'm not role playing every day with my peers, with that sales conversational flow, the
Yeah.
moment I engage with a customer, there's an immediate pattern interrupt, meaning I'm going about my day, I'm checking Facebook, I'm looking at the NBA scores, then a customer walks in, I have to shift my persona, my thinking, my mindset to customer mode. Even if I'm doing
Mhm.
research or follow-up, it's an immediate shift. That shift that is recognized by a customer subconsciously. They know that you've been interrupted. For instance, you walk into let's use car sales. You walk into a
Yeah.
car dealership, okay? There's a bunch of guys sitting at computers. They turn to look at you, go, oh, excuse me, 1 second, click, click. They get up. Hey, how you doing? They know that they've interrupted your day. And the beginning of that conversation is not optimal. Furthermore, they start asking questions. Your answers are going to be delayed. Even if it's for a fraction of a second, you'd be amazed how much of a difference that can make. However, if you're just coming fresh off a role play, if you're iterating about a conversation in your head that you just had with your sales manager, customer walks in, hey, how you doing? The flow is immediate. furthermore, man, there's so many other things that pay homage to that. But as a young salesperson, I was just getting up, going to work, man. I
Yeah.
was, hey, how you doing? If I could, would you? Request benefit. It just all this basic sales 101 stuff. They put us through what was called half a car training,
Yeah.
and it was like it's like giving somebody a book, saying read this, coming back 10 years later and expecting the book to be that fresh on their mind. If you don't reiterate, you're not gonna maintain your efficacy.
And I love what you shared there with neuroplasticity. I did a partnership once with the Pacific Institute. I'm not sure if you heard about them, but the mindset component is, I think so many people, sellers, we leave that on the table
Mm.
because to go back to this idea of the winging it, because I was a wing it seller too. I got into sales because somebody was like, Donald, you have a good personality for sales. Don't ever listen to that garbage. And I got into sales and I'm sitting here, well, the gift of gab is going to be able to help me. But then I saw how that limited me later on once I started performing, because I didn't have intentionality, and I went through a training program and they literally gave me that direction, and it changed my life, like literally. And
Hmm.
that's why I go back when you said no more winging it, bro. That's one of the things that we profess. Like, you cannot, if you want to be an elite seller. And I love the fact here about the steps, or getting that content. But let's say I'm a junior seller. I'm listening to this episode today. My
Yes.
company has nothing.
Hmm.
How can I get some kind of framework? What kind of thoughts can you give me to be identify a framework? But besides saying, come and we know we need to connect with you, Luke.
I was gonna say
But
we starting
I
this
know,
early
I
with
know.
the
He's
shameless
like, hold
plug.
on,
Let's
Donald.
roll.
Like, Donald set me up on this one. We're gonna have a shameless plug at the end, guys. So stay tuned.
Awesome.
I'm just like,
So yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
a great question, bro. I understand where you're going with that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
really, it comes very simply. There's a few things. Okay, let me give you
Mhm.
just kind of two key ones right here. Number one is the act of outward, or rather the act of trying to acquire new information, self-education. For
Yeah.
instance, every salesperson in the world will get better if they've never read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Okay.
Mhm.
And if you're a new salesperson and you're saying to yourself, oh wait, read a book, oh, I don't read books, it's like want cue the sound effect, right? Like, you don't understand. It's going to be painful to get better. That's, I guess, the best piece of educate or advice that I can give somebody looking for an early framework is, number one, if you're not willing to endure pain and discomfort, you should not plan on getting good at sales. Okay. The first
Mm.
thing we say in P2P is get comfortable getting uncomfortable. Okay. There's so many things that are going to be foreign to you. They're going to go against your natural flow, your natural conversational flow, natural grain as a human being. You just have to be prepared for that. But as far as a framework is concerned, so what your question is, if I'm brand new, how can I get started without having to spend any money, basically?
Yeah, some kind of direction. I'm hearing this and I'm like, dope. This is great. But nobody, my company, ain't giving me nothing. They're telling me go out and figure it out, kid.
So yeah, obviously the way I want to go with that is by sales training, and our company has a very inexpensive way to enter. But let's say you don't have a dollar. Let's say you somehow can't get access to me, whatever. You're going to need to implement your own framework, and the way to reverse engineer that is very simply. This is just at a very, very basic level. Start to tally up and log all of the objections that you've had, all of the objections that you've had trouble with over time. And as the days go on, you'll continue to get more. I would recommend cross-pollinating with your coworkers, ask them what their objections are. And the basic fundamental core principle of pay to persuade sales training is garnering all the information that is objectionable at the outset of the conversation to lead yourself to a non-objectionable close. Meaning, here's the basics, right? Salespeople think that selling is like, for instance, right here, I have a can of Monster Energy drink on my desk. Okay. And feel free to hate, guys. I know I shouldn't be drinking it, but anyways. So we got the Monster Energy drink, right? The average salesperson would start the conversation by going, hey man, you need a little energy? Yes. Okay. Well, look at this can. It's super shiny. It's got guarana and B vitamins. It's tremendous amount of caffeine. This is incredible. Take a sip. How do you like it? Isn't that great? Oh man, these are all the things that it's going to do for you. And it's only $3.99. What do you think? And then they're going to say what? Well, I got to talk to my wife. I got to think it over. I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to check Rockstar and Celsius, all the basic objections. Whereas an appropriate salesperson, or I say appropriate, that's the wrong word, an educated or weathered salesperson knows I got to mine some of this data at the outset of the conversation. I'm not going to let myself fall prey to these easy objections and these easy outs. So understand as a young salesperson that your customer is going to push back on your humanity to try to get out of the conversation. You have to learn how to prevent that. And the framework basically is this: if you've got nothing, start by introducing, building a little rapport, and immediately getting into queries that will discover whether those objections that you've once had are present in this conversation, so you can begin solving them immediately instead of waiting to the end of the sale to do it.
Come on. There you go. Y'all got something. All right, let's go into confidence. You mentioned, you give us a little bit of breakdown of the confidence. One of the components, though, you mentioned that, and I wrote this question out while you're saying it. How do you know you are getting the deal? You mentioned if you don't know you're getting a deal, you're done for, or something that new too. I have to go back and record it, but you're basically saying you got to be able to know, and you should be able to know. But how can someone know that with that level of confidence? Can you explain your thought process to that?
Yeah, brother, that's where the framework comes in, right? So
Mm,
we have created literally an infallible framework, okay? And I don't say that arrogantly or with braggadocio or to try to win brownie points on this podcast. I have literally tasked ChatGPT and other AI engines with going out into the internet and researching different sales methodologies and then feeding into the AI the core structure and the components of Paid to Persuade, as well as any information that it can get from the internet on our sales training discipline. And I ask it what the most effective, if you're a business owner, what is the most effective framework that you would pick? Paid to Persuade wins every time. And we're the new guy in town, so it's a very difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow. But
sure.
it's really very, bro, I got ranting. What was your original question?
No, you're good. How do you know you are getting the deal? Remember you mentioned that
Yes,
at the
the
beginning?
confidence of
Yeah.
getting the
Yeah.
deal. Yes, sorry, I pitched too
Yeah.
hard there. So the bottom line
Bro,
is
you're getting
this.
passionate. It's all good, man. This is
Well,
good.
the point was the framework. So
Yeah.
what I mean is this: if I were to play a game of football and I
Yeah.
don't know that 10 yards is a first down, a touchdown is 6 points, and a point after is a point, and someone says you got to get 21 points on the board and stay with the ball on offense, well, what's my first step going to be? I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what the framework is. I don't know what the rules of engagement are. So there's no way I can be sure that I'm going to get the end result. The same way that if you don't have a sales framework that you're adhering to, there's no way you can have that level of confidence. But in P2P, we teach a big three framework, which is three very simple things to get from the customer, three very simple things to interrogate out of the customer that are optimized so a beginner can do it easily, but an elite level veteran can use it and parlay it into a much more effective, shorter sales cycle. So the answer to the question is you're never going to have that confidence unless you know exactly what steps you need to take. And it's industry specific. The core is the same no matter where you go, but the ancillary questions, the further cultivation is all industry specific. So to that point, and the point of sales training, if you're taking a sales training and you've bought a sales training or you're engaged with some sort of sales training and they have not given you industry specific notations, industry specific personalized coaching, or some sort of add-on product that's significant to your industry, you're never going to reach maximum efficacy. So as far as the confidence to answer your question, to know you're going to close the deal, it comes with the framework. So for instance, if I know I've solved step one, it's like, okay, I have permission to move to step two. I've solved step two. Now I know I'm on a deal. I just have to bring it across the finish line, which is step three. So it's adherence to the framework.
And I think there's once you've experienced, I did a post the other day about when it's the best time to close a deal. It's like right after you close one. There's something with that confidence. Once you've done it once or twice, then all of a sudden you get to the next level. But it's critical, like you're saying, and we're going to talk about that in step number 3, where you got to maintain your level of, I guess, want to say, um, the humility to know that I continue to have to learn, because I got to that point where I was doing all right, and then I was like, I don't need this anymore, and I stopped doing my refresher, and I sucked it up, and I had to go back to get back into the system. But the thing, but there's this confidence that comes knowing that you've done it before, and I think there's so many other points that you highlight to, and obviously we don't have enough time to go through all of them, but I feel like there's, once you get to that level of confidence, though, because of the simple fact that you're consistent with your framework, magic just begins to happen, and then you can start to. It becomes you, so to speak. I'm not being Luke and Luke framework. I took the framework, but then I adapted it to who I am because I've done it consistently. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I've seen that part when it comes to building that confidence. It helped me a lot. Just that repetition.
Yeah, bro, it's when you know that you have the ability to do the job, when you could, like you said, when's your best time to close a deal? It's right after you've closed the deal. So that saying, that phrase parlays back into exactly what I'm what I'm
Hmm.
sharing, which is confidence. That
Yeah.
is the ultimate parameter. You say content, confidence, cadence. Well, content is a framework, cadence is your rhythm. Those are both like styles of training. But that middle one, well, that's just a thing, right? That's not
Yeah.
something we can do or not an actionable step we can take. You're just saying confidence. Well, that's kind of just throwing things to the wind. No, it's not. It's the most important part.
Yeah.
If, for instance, you have a terrible time starting conversations, well, then, my friend, you should dive into books, coaching, audiobooks, podcasts about conversational flow, confidence in conversation, effective communication. Because once you knock that down and you've got that notch in your belt, guess what? All of a sudden, you're 10 times more confident in your sales conversation. Now, let's say you're not strong with product knowledge. You might be a great conversationalist. You might strictly adhere to the framework, remember every step of it, but it comes down to the product knowledge. You just really don't care about, pressure sprayer motors or whatever it is that you're selling. So you have a hard time getting compassionate about that. So that's what you need to work on. And it's different for every individual, but whatever you feel like is your weakness in the conversation, and we all have it, whatever our choke off point is, meaning, a lot of people say, well, I have a hard time selling to engineers. They're so educated. They're so wise. I get intimidated by them. And you're smiling because you've heard that before. I hate selling to engineers, right? And then
Doctors, engineers.
then there's well, I hate selling to single women that come in without their husband because they always say they want to talk to their husband. It's like, listen, if those are your bones of contention, those should be your study points. That's what you should be working on. Not simply because it's good to solve those things, but because the after effect, intrinsic confidence. Now you feel like you don't have that cross to bear anymore. Your
Yeah.
efficacy goes through the roof. You're absolutely right.
Oh man, come on, preach. All right, let's go to cadence. Let's go to cadence now.
Let's do it.
We role play, staying with staying with your system, connecting with your coach or whatnot. Um, let's talk about why salespeople drop the ball on this one. I mean, you could probably apply it to any discipline, but
Mhm.
specifically salespeople. I kind of alluded to mine, but why, in your experience, do most people drop the ball when it comes to that continuation after?
Because it's uncomfortable. The same reason that some athletes are better than others, the same reason that Kobe was a legend, the same reason that Steph Curry makes every shot, the same reason that anybody who operates at an elite level operates at an elite level. It's because they're willing to go through the pain, the discomfort, the tediousness, all the things that push against our humanity, the human condition, right?
Yeah.
So to get up in the morning, stop at Dunkin' Donuts, grab a donut, a breakfast sandwich, a cup of coffee, get to work, smoke a cigarette, put a nicotine pouch in our mouth, then scroll through Facebook for a little bit, and then get our sales day started. That's the most comfortable thing you can possibly do. In fact, it's so comfortable that it's going to make having your first conversation difficult because it's going to interrupt your comfortable pattern. Okay. Now, roll your ass out of bed, grab a cup of coffee from your Keurig on the counter, and put it in a disposable, reusable cup before you leave. So you've got it in the car. Then call on your Bluetooth on the way to work, your sales buddy who's just as intense as you are, who might be 3 states over that you met in a Facebook community, and start role playing back and forth. Bro, it requires energy, requires you
Yeah.
to be woke up first thing in the morning. The reason people don't do all of these things that make them elite is because they're uncomfortable and they require energy and input. Okay. Which is why some people are listening to the sales evangelist while other ones are listening to Joe Rogan. Okay. Because some people want to be entertained. Other people have a ruthless vendetta against not being successful and they want to win. So,
We hate mediocrity.
bro, get your ass out of comfort and into discomfort. If you operate every day knowing that you're going to have, let me rephrase myself. If you enter every day knowing that you're going to be operating in a zone of discomfort, well, you've at least committed to yourself that you're going to improve, and it all starts there.
Mm. This idea of a couple of pieces on that. One, breaking through what your human nature would want to tell you. Like some days I just want to stay in bed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but and I don't care who you are. Like some days you just feel like that, and it's like, you know what? Well, I know I need to do the workout, or I know I need to get going. I know I need to get my mind worked. I take in certain content, so I'm going to prepare and get that done in the morning or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that done, but then the other component to it too that I found that is you kind of alluded to and hit on, besides the fact that it's uncomfortable, is having that accountability partner. Because I think because we as human beings we're going to find a path of least resistance.
Yes,
But
bro.
once you have accountability, bro, once you have accountability, it makes such a big difference. And I can tell you that statement that says you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. Once I saw that I started hanging out with people that were making more money than me and they were in a different group and they were behaving a different way, I was like, crap. I started upping my game because they were accountable. I had accountability towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's made such a huge difference. But I cannot stress enough how much that component there is so critical. And most people don't want to do it because it says it's uncomfortable. I don't want you to tell me what to do, Luke, because I really want to go eat my bonbons and go watch ESPN or whatever.
All an individual. You're so right, bro. And a lot of people need it broken down to Crayola crayons to be able to absorb it. And I try to reach everybody. Okay. So for the folks in the back, stop and think about grade school. Okay. Stop and think about going to school. What'd they have you do? They had you
Yeah.
show up at a time. They had you nap at a time. They had you educated at a time. They had you do physical education at a time. They had you eat at a time. They had you further education at a different time. They had you work in groups. They had you work in small groups. They had you work one-on-one, and they had you graded every single day of your life. Then they gave you a break, i.e. Sunday, and then they brought that repetition back in summer vacation, and then they brought that repetition back at the beginning of every week. When I say Sunday, I mean Sunday is your break from your work week. Summer vacation represents the break from school. But the bottom line is you had a cadence, you had accountability, you had nutrition, you had sleep, and you had physical activity. Now, audit your life right now, Mr. Adult, Mr. 25, 35, 45, 55. Is you getting physical education once a day and activity? Probably you ain't. Are you accountable? Are you being graded? Are you doing your quarterly reviews? If your boss is slacking off, I know you're not doing it. Are you going at certain checkpoints during your day and doing certain activities that you know are going to feed into the larger result? No, you're not. Well, that's why from the age of kindergarten through your senior year, you got smarter, you got bigger, you got healthier, you got more information, you improved, everything in your life leveled up. And then all of a sudden, adulthood became stagnant. Why? Because guess what? When you don't do the same things that lead to that positive end is not going to happen.
Come on. Come on. Thanks for bringing that Crayola into class today.
Yes, sir. I'm the big box of crayons with the sharpener built in.
At a Sharp in a building. Oh man, I'll tell you stories on that one. We had anyways. I love this. I love the idea here. I love how simple and fundamental it is, and I feel that anyone watching this, whether you're a seasoned seller, whether you're a sales leader, or whether you're an individual contributor, brand new, you can take these principles and apply them. There are many different takeaways that folks are going to pull from this episode. But if there's one thing you want folks to leave with today, Luke, one major takeaway, what's that major piece of advice?
Listen, man, and it's going to sound awfully ironic coming from the guy who sells sales training, right? But you need to invest in yourself. So if you leave this podcast and you don't engage with Paid to Persuade, I ain't mad at you. And in fact, if you go do something that adheres closer to your goals, I'm proud of you. But if you're not educating yourself, like if you've never bought a self-development book or downloaded one on Audible, like that's one significant brick in your foundation that doesn't exist. If you don't have a role playing or a practice partner in sales, that's another significant brick in your foundation that's missing. If you don't have a framework that you're adhering to, so every single sales conversation is the same. Why? Because number one, you can't measure your results. You can't track your accountability, number one. And number two, you can't have any friggin' consistency. If you're just winging it every time, you're going to get and you're never going to know what works, what doesn't work. You're going to have a general understanding, but you'll have nothing that's measurable. Okay. That's another significant brick that's missing in your framework. So from this episode, guys, in 20 minutes, you should have walked away with a lot of actionable things, but nothing more important than, I believe, than doing what most people will not do, which is spend money to get better. When you see something and it seems different than everything else, the logical conclusion is that it is. So if you're in sales and you want that stupid money that you know is possible, that you keep hearing about, that all the veterans have talked about in the heyday when things were good, that money's still out there. It's bigger than it ever was. The problem is those veterans, they were forged by the fire. They grew up in a different time. They executed at a different level. Now, instead of raising everybody else to the level of their ability, they've fallen down and fallen prey to the ecosystem of the new generation that surrounds them. There's no more wolves left. And the ones that are getting the major slice of the pie. If you look at the statistics, about 4% of salespeople are eating 65% of the money. Okay. I'm within 3%. 4% of the salespeople are getting 65% of the money, which means that 96% of the salespeople are fighting over the other 34%. If you do the math, that means that 90 some odd gosh darn percent of salespeople are eating crumbs. Well, there's about 4% sitting fat and happy. Why? Because they get comfortable getting uncomfortable, and they're not afraid in investing in themselves. That's what I got for them, brother.
Come on. All right. So you heard it. If folks want to get in touch with you, I'm sure they can just probably run down. We have some links in the show notes that can get back in touch with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, guys, go ahead and connect with Luke. It's going to be money. It's going to help you out. And if you've gotten any insights from this episode today, I encourage you to go ahead and apply it and see the major results. Luke, thanks for coming on the show today.
Donald, can I drop one thing real quick, brother?
Yes.
Anybody that watches this show, The Sales Evangelist, if you go to paidtopersuade.com and book an appointment, put in the notes, Sales Evangelist Podcast, I will take your appointment personally.
All right. Look at that. Let's go.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks, Luke.
Yes, sir.
Hey, that was Luke. I highly encourage you to go ahead and follow him and connect with him. There's a link down in the show notes. If you're curious to learn about what Luke has to offer, you can find the details there. As always, listen, I want you to be able to take things from this episode and apply it to help you to build pipe, but also want to help you to be able to increase your close rate. I want you to be able to perform at a higher level. I want you to be able to maximize your effort as a human being. I want you to be motivated and inspired. Most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. See you on the next one.